the copyright owner itself is not going to earn anything even if he had done that.
Wow.
So then there should be no licensing.
How is, in a sense, how?
For example, like we have a fair use exception for news reporting, etc.
Correct.
So things like this, it doesn't make sense to even pay that license fee because what they're actually doing is they're increasing the copyright owner's ability to earn rather than decreasing. So they don't, why should they compensate?
So you write a project, okay, get your grades and get hired by a law firm. So how remotely is your project connected to a commercial motive? So, or you don't do all of that. Your teacher tells you, the course instructor tells you, my God, this is the, what is your name? Divya. So Divya's project is really super. Divya, why don't you make a publication out of it? And you start getting royalties. You make a publication out of your project. So should the possibilities of making it commercial should be determinative or the sole factor, or at least one of the factors in determining, the type of use, whether a type of use should be regarded as fair use.
Sir, I didn't get it because I thought like the point was like even if it's not the determining factor, if the situation is such that that fair use or the use by the third party of that work is going to increase, is in no way going to decrease the income or the market for the original author, and the only possibility that it would increase the income to the original author.
Yeah.
That's the only possibility.
Yeah.
Then why should there be any need to license?
So
or
it would not decrease the possibility of
profit to the original author.
Yeah, but that presupposes that that's the only market you have. What does it presuppose? That giving a first copy of the book is the only way in which I can exploit my copyright. Why can't I exploit my copyright by giving out a license for specific uses? Get the point? You're right, because it wouldn't enter into competition with the book. But that presupposes that book is the only way in which people are going to read and use it. People can't make any other type of use out of it, right? So there are certain issues around how we want to define these concepts. So existence of market, transformative uses, and the power to exclude. So yeah, you have a question. So what is a transformative use basically? Because fair use has both kinds of uses, transformative and non-transformative. Some of the uses that fair dealing section has is purely for the purpose of making copies, like a copy for the library, copy for the purpose of quotations, copy for the purpose of taking a backup of your computer program, right? Playing music for religious, cultural purposes, for a non-profit type. So where you have kinds of uses which are purely based on actual use of the content, and it does not add to or diminish any kind of value for the copyright owner in some sense. So what do you do? Whether transformative uses or how far the particular use is transformative should be one of the important factors in determining, because you saw this in the 4-factor test, the US cases, and the transformative uses can heavily weigh in favor of fair use vis-a-vis a non-transformative use, because US law does not define in terms of types of uses, but it is based on certain principles, and if you fall within those 4 factors, you have a safe harbor, right? And then the market power conveyed by copyright law versus the scope of an injunction. And what do I mean by this? Now, copyright law, if you come to think of it, does not directly convey you the monopoly. Is copyright law a monopoly? Of course it is. Everybody is going to say that. But a very nuanced we would, when we take a very nuanced position on this, probably not. And I'll give you an example. Probably I may be wrong, I may be right, but this is how some scholars understand. Okay, I write this book, okay, and I put it in the market. Do I have a monopoly? In the literal sense, yes, because I have copyright. You cannot, do anything without my permission. You cannot reproduce the book without my permission. But do I have market power? When will I have market power? Only when the book sells. If my book doesn't sell, it means that copyright owner, although he has a monopoly, he may not have the market power. Right? So copyright law does not give that market power. It's a market that gives you the power, or gives the power to the copyright owner. That's why I said monopoly in a very literal sense. Because if the monopoly has to actually make sense, it has to be an economic monopoly. An economic monopoly is what? Is the market power that the copyright holder derives from. Right? So now...
But how is any monopoly different? I mean, monopoly and market power sort of go together, right?
As I given an example here, I write this book, nobody buys it. I have a monopoly. Don't I have a monopoly?
Yes.
But does it make any effect in the market? And why is it effect important? Because unless I have a market power, how am I able to do any harm or create any abuse in the market?
But
Because my work is not valuable at all. Nobody values this work. Yeah.
like say if we were to argue that the government of India has got monopoly over the railways,
Yeah.
and Indians preferred buses and airlines to as compared to railways,
Yeah.
then we would say that even though the Indian government has got a monopoly, they haven't got market power.
Yeah. Depending on whether railways are used or not. If railways are not used because buses are more comfortable, then railways will not have a market power.
So, but then how then if
Because, and it's only because you consider railways as a substitute for buses. Yeah.
But how is your example? I mean, your example of monopoly and copyright
Yeah.
differing from, like, say, monopoly by the government of India and railways?
That's because some of the argument says one is it's real property, which is different from copyright. You know this distinction between real property and copyright as a property in economic terms? This public good distinction? Yeah?
In the sense, yours increases the competence. I mean,
Okay, I'll explain. Hold on. I'll explain. Now, there are private goods, there are public goods. So what are private goods? Those that are not public goods. So let's understand what is public good. Now, in economic theory, you have certain kinds of goods which display certain characteristics, unique characteristics. Like for example, air. The air we breathe can simultaneously, everybody of us can consume without diminishing the opportunity for others to consume. Right? Certain resources like that. Now for example, knowledge. What is the whole copyright system trying to protect? Knowledge or information. Knowledge or information has this inherent characteristic of a public good, which is different from a real property. In real property, what do you have? Land and chattels. You have land, you have chattels. Now, you have this phone. I take this phone from you. Do you have the phone for you to use? No. Because I have it. So my consumption is rivalrous to yours. So in case of land also, if I occupy the land, okay, you can't use it unless I allow you to use it simultaneously. So it's rivalrous in consumption. You can't consume. If I have an apple and I eat half of the apple, what is left is half for you. Okay? You can't eat whole of the apple. Can you? No. But in case of knowledge, for example, this lecture, okay, I give it to you. Okay? I give it to 10 different people. Are you diminishing somebody else's potential to use it or consume it? But in case of an apple, if I give you half of the apple and if everybody wants to eat it, you'll have to make slices out of it. Right? So, in some sense, knowledge is non-rivalrous in consumption, which is different from a real property situation like land, chattels. Okay? And it's also non-excluding in the sense that if I give you a pen, I can always take it back from you. Right? Provided there is consent. I give you with consent and I take it back with consent. But if I dispose of myself with the knowledge that I have, okay, can I get it back from you? Can I dispossess you from that knowledge? Can I dispossess you from this gyan? I can't. I can't dispossess you from this lecture because you already got it. That's the character of knowledge. Now this inherent economic characteristic of knowledge makes it a little distinct from real property. And that's why, okay, in terms of how products of intellectual property gets consumed, there can be various implications on the market. So in our example, why I said a copyright law, although provides monopoly, may not provide the market power, is because copyright law does not decide what the price is. Copyright law does not say that this is the price for your book, 100 rupees. Who decides the price basically? It's the market that decides the price. So the power is conveyed, or the monopolistic power that you have is conveyed by the market forces. The law is only there to protect you when somebody wants to intervene in that monopoly and to create competition. So in a sense, copyright law wants to keep off competition. Right? But it gets into effect only when the market responds. Otherwise there is nothing. Otherwise the monopoly is not worth its name. And why this distinction is important? Because, for example, and this is another problem when we encounter fair use and issues of remedies. You remember I mentioned you how we should try and understand our relationship with, how fair use and remedies can work, coexist, stifle each other. One classic example is, I go to the court, okay, I want to write a book, okay, and I have declared on several websites that I am taking so many passages from so many books, and one of them goes to the court saying that this is infringement, okay. Now, his work is one among the several works that I am using for my book. I am giving you a very simple example, the book. So if the court grants him an injunction, a temporary one, or an ex parte, okay, what will be its implication? It's not just his work and his relationship with the use that I am doing, but he is able to block the entire book from coming to the market. What should I do otherwise? Just leave it off, leave his passage, or that particular things that I have taken from him, and put it in the market. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. So an injunction or a remedy can convey a lot more market power, and that's Lemley's article. If you read through Lemley's article, can convey you a market power that you don't actually deserve. Right? And why is it important? Because in the context of copyright infringement especially, in most cases, people would raise, unless it's a blatant case of piracy, because it's an identical copy, and you pass it off as the work not of your own. If it's your own, then it's not. Like, if you pass it off as others' work, the originator's work, then it's a passing off. Right? So you pass it off, and that's piracy then, because identical and passed off. Right? Then what happens? Then you have a clear-cut case where you can say that, oh, this is infringement, and I can prima facie say that, this is infringement. But in the case involving fair use, because what happens in an injunction? What do you do when you grant an injunction? Huh? You prevent someone from doing something, or the court can ask you to do something, right? mandatory and prohibitive injunctions. Now the problem is this: injunctions are equitable remedies. Remedies in equity. Why? Because if you go by common law, okay, damages may just be sufficient because your whole purpose is to do what? Your whole purpose is to get money out of it, make money out of it. So just pay him damages. Why do you want to grant an injunction? Injunction is necessary because if there are some harms that happen to the copyright holder which are irreversible, where you can't restitute him with compensatory damages, then you need an injunction. But what happens? In evaluating injunctions, if the court do not place emphasis on the possibility of a fair use exception, and subsequently based on the merits of the trial, it's found that there is of course fair use, what do? Can you replace the harm? Because by that time, either he has stopped production, the defendant, or he has entirely shifted onto a different business. I'm talking in terms of pure business implications. Yeah.
I understand how copyright does not give market power.
Yeah.
It may give monopoly in the strict sense, but not market power.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why you need fair use because a copyright does not give market power. I didn't get the
No.
connection.
I'm not saying that you need fair use because you have market or you don't have market power. I'm saying that the moment copyright law gives you a monopoly and you're able to have a market power, okay, that must be commensurate with your actual market power. Because what happens? You have market power with reference to your work, but the person whom you are trying to stop through an injunction, your work is one of the works that he has relied on. His work is entirely new. And how are you going to determine that? Only after doing it on trial. That you say that fair use defense can be raised, and he can he can raise a fair use defense and he can be excused from infringement. Final merits. But when is an injunction granted? A temporary and ex parte? At the beginning. So if it is granted at the beginning, what is its implication for the person who wants to come out? Because isn't that his creativity? Whose creativity? The defendant's creativity. Doesn't that harm free speech? Doesn't that harm his ability to create and put something in the public domain? Yeah.
So, like, fair use might not be the replacement for the rights you have, like when you have your own work.
Yeah.
But isn't it also essentially because you have a lack of market power? Like a large media corporation might be more willing to license out some of a certain manner of usage of their content to
Correct.
another avenue where they think they themselves would profit from that use.
Yeah.
But if let's say a student or something wants to use it, they might not be that willing to license out their work for that kind of usage. So in that sense, fair use still helps you because you don't have market power, right? That student or whoever doesn't have market power essentially. So fair use is helping him because it's helping him overcome that lack of market power.
No, in a sense, look, if you are allowed to raise the defense at the time of a remedy, if you are sued as a student and you are not allowed to do that, what happens then? Because in evaluating the 4 factors, there is one factor called balance of convenience, right? And you don't evaluate the case based on merits at the preliminary stage. So if the court says, grant an injunction because we think that there is a prima facie case, why? Because the case is not trivial, okay? It has some merit, but we don't know. And what happens? You end up having a fair use exception in real after the final merits, but you get the other party gets an injunction and stops you from using that fair.
Yeah, but it's still helping you to overcome that lack of market power, right?
Later, when? Only after the case is decided on merits. So by that time, you might totally get disinterested in the work and you might shift. So isn't there some kind of a harm that can occur? And if you read Lemley's article, he makes that point that we should try and now shift to compensatory damages rather than giving these injunctions. Because we always, all the time we tend to think of fair use in terms of rights and defenses. but how it operates in practice is also important, right? Because fair use can be exercised only when when you exercise it in the first place, and then you go to someone goes to the court and gets an injunction. There is no continuing fair use there. You can't use that fair use and put it in the market or make some commercial use out of it. Or even if it's a non-commercial use, an injunction might just stop you from doing it. A non-profit society can also be stopped from coming out with certain books that infringe copyright. So what I'm saying is that the market power that you have over a work, okay, might substantially enlarge when you have a right to exclude in the form of an injunction, which is not sensitive or sometimes is less sensitive to concerns of fair use. Or you should say that we are going to directly straight away move on the merits of the case and final adjudication, until then no injunction. And then probably fair use is safe. Why? Because there is continuing fair use there. Otherwise, if the court injuncts you from operating on fair use, where is fair use? Right? Right? So, the other question was, should the existence of license, bringing down the cost, disentitle fair use? So I've already made this point. So if transaction cost comes down, and with increasingly, with internet and everything, transaction cost is going to come down. Okay. Will that lead to some kind of disentitling you from fair use? And why is this? Because now what are the publishers saying in the new photocopying case, if you look at it? They are saying, oh, we don't create those course packs. Why? Because we have 10 different books and it's not feasible for us to put those books together or articles together and have a course pack. But what are we going to do? We are going to grant a license to whom? To Rameshwari Photocopiers. He charges you 50 paisa a copy. With a license, he would charge you 1 rupee, and the 50 paisa is going to come to the coffers of whom? Of the authors, of the publishers. Okay. Oh, the great mystery of authors and publishers should be demystified actually, because it's like you should ask authors how much they get. So anyway. So, what are they saying then? They would say that, and they are saying actually, that take this is a license and do whatever you want. Give us the money. So, something that was costing 50 paise would cost 1 rupee. And what's the cost of it? Maybe if it's 100 pages, 2 cups of chai in June. Okay? Or 1 cup of chai. So does it cost much? So, there is an argument now that you can, if you can bring down the transaction cost in terms of licenses and create a market for licenses, it means that fair use is actually getting in competition with whom? With the market player. It's a copyright one. So there are serious issues around that. Now, and how do you visualize this fair use? And he mentioned in the beginning, fair use as a defense versus fair use as a right. What difference does this actually make? If you want to coin that, fair use as a defense versus fair use as a right. Whether you can contract out of fair use? Good. Can you contract out of fair use? Does copyright law impose any kind of restriction on you to contract out of fair use? And if it is a right, can't you contract out of fair use still? And if it's a defense, can't you still contract out of fair use?
But there's nothing to contract out.
There's nothing to contract out?
And if
The beneficiary of fair use is, the beneficiary of fair use is everyone, right? The aspect of the copyright that's going to fair use.
Yeah.
That part goes nothing but to the commons, basically.
Okay, this question has not been answered in the Indian context, okay, but it has been answered in several US contexts. So and also in the European context. So in certain cases, especially in Europe, they have put restrictions saying that you cannot contract out of fair use. For example, on the issue of interoperability of computer software, they have clearly said this kind of an exception is not that something you can contract out. But for example, a normal case, you end up, EULAs, end use licensing agreements. Yeah. Sign up, look at a EULA and check into your fair use provisions and see whether you are not contracting out or contracting out of fair use. Right? So every day, each one of us ends up contracting out of fair use. Don't we? And can't you? If the law is neutral, does the law say just open your Copyright Act? (52) Yeah, starting, beginning. Read the title. Section 52. Acts.
Shall not constitute an
Yeah. And what does it say? Read it. The following acts shall not constitute.
infringement of copyright.
Yeah. And now, can you or can you not contract fair use? Contract out of fair use.
It can go either way.
Yeah? You think so? I'll be interested to hear an interpretation as to why it goes. I have always considered that it is neutral. Neutral, but more in favor of copyright owners.
I mean, I think that
It's worded neutral, but then the effect is in each and every case of fair use. They need not say it. Because copyright law is not an instrument for contract. Contract Act is an instrument for contract. Unless your contract law bars you from actually, contracting out certain things. Okay? Then why should copyright law even bother? It's not that it cannot, it does. On several issues it does. For example, in case of authors and what they can contract out with their prospective assignees, there are limitations in the recent copyright amendment. It's not that copyright law and contract cannot overlap, they can. But in case of fair use, they have it.
So, but you can't contract your way out of a legal provision, even if it's copyright act.
If you can.
it depends on whether it's mandatory or not.
Okay, right.
No, but I mean,
Is it some kind of a fundamental right that you cannot contract out?
no.
And then there is a case, I guess, on whether you can contract out of fundamental rights or not.
No, but that US case on this contracting out, what they're saying is that if you allow, I mean, if you have these ULAs, if you make people contract out of it, you're creating a system that's protecting copyright outside of the copyright legislation.
Exactly.
So the copyright says that the Copyright Act says you're protecting copyright only in these cases. How can I as an individual extend that copyright protection to cases not covered by the Act?
Yeah, but then that's why I said it's not a Copyright Act which would govern it, but contract, rules of contract. Shouldn't I have the freedom to determine how I actually design my license?
Well, the objective of
Objective of the system is lost. You're right, I'm not denying. Why is the objective lost? Because in each case, because these contracts are what? Adhesive. Sticky contracts. Why? Why are they sticky? Because in each and every case, you have no other option but to click and enter into a contract. And you don't have an option, do you? The other way to argue this or articulate this is that even if you don't have, and if there are some companies like, I don't want to name companies, okay, which have strong ULAs, which do not allow you to exercise your fair use, then there can be a competition between companies in terms of what? Certain companies allowing you not the contract or fair. So there can be competition in terms of who allows and who doesn't allow. Is that bad?
So Android, Apple.
Who to some other one? If you
But,
read.
but I just read the preamble of the act.
Uh,
I mean, we could argue like it's actually absolutely biased towards the copyright owners because I mean
that's why it's the Copyright Act.
yeah, but it doesn't talk about commons or I mean even though fair use is treated as an exception even in this fair act, but it talks about creative persons creating stuff, and so I guess if preamble was
That's why we'll have to reassess the primary objectives of the copyright system and evaluate.
Yeah.
And when I raised those 4-5 points in the beginning, underlying public policy rationing, free speech, public policy. So those are the freedoms you want to preserve. I have included an article. I didn't include it in my slides by Bernd Hugenholz and Kedji. Read that article. Okay, you will find something very interesting. They are arguing fair use in terms of different layers. Certain fair use should be made mandatory, and certain fair uses are mandatory. For example, quotations. I gave you a nice example of quotation saying that you can, can you have a market for quotations? Actually, you cannot, because Berne Convention says that you'll have to mandatorily provide it as a fair use exception. So even if countries want to say that we don't want to have it as a fair use exception and want to leave it to the copyright holder's prerogative. What prerogative? To derive or extract royalties from quotations. Berne Convention wouldn't allow it. Because there is a mandatory liability rule or the mandatory fair use provision. Why is that so mandatory? And what is its difference with other forms of fair use or fair dealing?